Hello everyone. We have already talked about some two topics actually on complex algebra, and that is the first one we are talking about the simplifying of the x plus iy form, and the second video is to discuss on how to find the absolute value of a complex number. So in this video we are going to talk about complex equation where we want to find the x and y of a complex number when we are given a certain complex number terms, right? So let's look at the following examples. Right, so now let's look at the first example. The first example is we are given 2i, and here we want to find x plus iy equals 2i. So in this case, this is very simple because this is x is going to be equals to 0, and here I is I, and therefore y is equals to 2. So this is a very simple equation to solve. But let's look at the more uh, complicated one, slightly complicated, where now we have x plus iy squared, and this is equals to 2i. So here we want to find what is x and what is y, where when you take the square of it, this is going to be equals to 2i. And how we do it is we are going to expand this term so that x plus iy, when we expand them, we will have x squared plus 2xyi minus y squared. And here we identify that x squared minus y squared is going to be the real part of the complex number. But in this case, the real part of the complex number is going to be equals to 0. So therefore, we have x squared minus y squared equals to 0, and x is going to be equals to 1. So let's look at the imaginary part. And the imaginary part here is going to be 2xy is going to be equals to 2. And therefore, my x multiplied by y is going to give you 1. And since we know that x is equals to y, so therefore we can replace x equals to y here so that you have y squared equals to 1. And therefore y is going to be equals to 1. So from these two results here, you will see that in the x plus iy form, my x is going to be equals to 1 and y is equals to 1, and therefore 1 plus I squared is going to be equals to 2i. So now here you can prove to yourself that this is correct if you just simply take 1 plus I squared, 1 plus I, and you square this, and you will find that this is going to give you 1 plus 2i plus I squared. So I squared is going to be equals to -1, and this is going to cancel with 1, and therefore the answer is 2i. So this is one example where you do some manipulation in order to get the x and the y value in a complex number. Alright, so here I give you a third example on the complex equation, where now our equations that is given to us is written like this. You have 2x minus 3y minus 5. This is the real part. And on the imaginary part, you have x plus 2y plus 1. And this whole expression is going to be equal to 0. So here you will notice that on the right hand side, this is equal to 0. And it means that the real part by itself should be equal to 0. And the imaginary part must also be equal to 0. Therefore, here you will set the 2x minus 3y minus 5 to be equals to 0 here. And on the imaginary part, x plus 2y plus 1 equals to 0. So now you have two sets of equations, and you have to try to find what is x and y. So here you can do one way, which I did here, is to multiply the second equation by 2, and then you take equation number 1 minus twice the equation number 2. And so you will have this expression, so that now when you take you minus them, you will get minus 7y minus 7 equals to 0, and therefore y is equals to minus 1. So now when you know what is y, and you just have to substitute it into the equations to find what is x. So here I substitute it into the equation number 2, where I put y equals to minus 1 over here, and x plus 2 times minus 1 plus 1, and here you get x minus 2 plus 1 equals to 0, and therefore x is equals to 1. So here the answer that we want is that x equals to 1 and y equals to minus 1. So now let's look at the last example on the complex equations. So in this case, we want to find what is x and y in this complex equation given by this one here. And here you see on the right hand side there is only a imaginary part which is the 2x. So here you want to find what is x and y, and the first thing that you need to do is to expand the left hand side. So here you have x plus iy squared and you have to expand this. So be careful here because this is not the, you are multiplying x plus iy by x plus iy itself and not the conjugate. Okay, so here if you expand this you are going to get x squared minus y squared plus 2xyi. So this is on the left hand side, and you need to compare this with the right hand side, where your right hand side is only 2xi. So here you have to, you will see that the real part of this expression x squared minus y squared here is going to be equals to 0 because there is no real part over here. So here in this case you will have x equals to y. So now you go to the imaginary part where on the left hand side you have the imaginary part which is 2xyi, 2xy, and on the right hand side this is 2x. So here you will see that after you rearrange it you get 2y equals to 2 and therefore y is equals to 1. And the answer in this case, since x is equals to y, you have y equals to 1 and x is also going to be equals to 1. So that is the answer that you want. But in case you want to prove that this is correct, you can just simply substitute x and y equals to 1 into the expression here, and as well as here. And here you will see that 1 plus I squared, you can see that this is going to give you 2i, which is the same as the one here. So this is how you find the x and y when you have complex equations, and this is also the way that you should do in order to check that your answer is correct.